Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Aamir Hussain. I love to talk about research so much so I decided to make YouTube videos just about that. And today is part 2 of our 4-part series about my DNA Fit results. Now if you don't know what DNA Fit is, it's a company that specializes in DNA testing to give you more of an idea about yourself in terms of your optimal diet, your best fitness type, best way to sleep, and how do you cope with stress, what nutrients are beneficial for you, and which ones do you need a higher amount. Now, if you missed part 1, you can see it over here. It's where I go through my diet type, and that's a really good precursor for this video because part 2 is all about my nutrient type. So things about my vitamins and minerals, which ones I need a higher amount and why. So I'm looking forward to this one because I want to shed some light on the importance of vitamins from a research point of view. Now, before I go any further, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It'll be a massive help to me and the channel. We are on 75 subscribers as I record this video. Wouldn't it be cool to get to 100? Maybe 000, but you know the drill. And do like and comment if you can, because I'm hoping this video will be useful to you. If you do so, do let me know. But let's get cracking on the vitamins and minerals. So I wanted to start off with the whole concept of the misconceptions behind vitamins and minerals. Because a lot of people say, oh, multivitamins is worthless, or multivitamins are actually really good, they really help. But from a research point of view, the whole notion of vitamins being naturally sourced is because they come from whole foods. And when they're inside whole foods, they have a lot of protective molecules, other, you can say, cofactors and enzymes and proteins in play to help protect that nutrient, first of all, or that vitamin, but also to help it be better absorbed when you ingest it. Now, one of the biggest arguments against multivitamins is that most of them are in isolate form. Now, you don't normally uptake nutrients in the form of vitamins in an isolate form. They normally are in whole foods. So when you do take them, by the time they get to your body, so by the time they get metabolized, something known as pharmacokinetics looks at what does the body do to something that you get ingested. So for example, a multivitamin, i.e. a supplement, by the time it gets to your cells, it's already been metabolized, things have been done to it. Whereas if it was from a whole food source, even though it's in lower quantities, it would probably be better absorbed and better utilized. So that's one of the key arguments. I'm not going to go into a whole video about the pros and cons of multivitamins, but it is well documented, and I've put articles down in the description box about why whole foods are better long-term source of uptake for nutrients in terms of vitamins and minerals, and is better for you long-term. Because one of the other issues in regards to vitamins is synthetic versions as opposed to natural versions sometimes don't get excreted as quickly. Now, sometimes because of that, you may have higher levels of that particular vitamin than you should normally. So you have an abnormal level. Now we heard a lot about nutrient deficiency or iron deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, but sometimes somebody might have abnormally high levels of vitamin, which can also be a problem. So that's something to bear in mind in regards to synthetic vitamins. Now, when somebody has a genetic predisposition or an unfortunate condition where they have a severe deficiency in a certain vitamin, this is the key way where actual vitamin supplements can potentially help. I'll put some articles in the description box as well about special cases where supplemental therapy can actually help for those isolated cases. But on the whole, getting your vitamins and minerals from whole foods is definitely far better. So before I go into the actual results, I wanted just to shed a bit of a crash course into why vitamins and minerals are actually really useful and beneficial for you. I want to share this in a really interesting analogy because recently a friend of mine bought a new car, and he mentioned that to maintain the car, imagine body is the car, you got to look at all the little nitty gritty bits when you start to clean it. So inside the wheel, underneath the car, into the little nooks and crannies that you probably don't even pay attention to, because over time those things can start to degrade, to get damaged and rot, and then it can actually affect other parts of the car. Vitamins and minerals are also like that. They may not be given that much attention because, for example, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, all those macronutrients are important for a reason. But if they are neglected over time, you may get more and more potential conditions that could have been prevented had you had adequate nutrition from certain vitamins and minerals. Now, to add, nutrients are so powerful and so important to help you absorb other things. For example, vitamin D is really crucial to help with the absorption of calcium. Vitamin C is really good for help absorption of iron. So we do need those things to help boost our ability to uptake other key nutrients. But the flip side is also key, where other parts of your diet are really crucial to absorb certain vitamins, because some vitamins are water soluble, some vitamins are fat soluble. So, like, really good oil dressings can help to absorb certain vitamins in your salads. But that's something we may not remember from time to time. So that's just a little insight into pros and cons of multivitamins, why vitamins and minerals are actually really useful for you and beneficial for your body long term, and they shouldn't be neglected. But let's go and have a look at my results from the DNA Fit test. So, welcome to my nutrient report from DNA Fit. So, a lot of the pre kind of pages I've discussed in part one, so I'm going to go straight down to the summary of my results, which should be somewhere here. There we go. So, if you're just here to see what my results were, is here on the screen. I'll move my face so you can see the other ones. There we go, because I'll probably be in the corner bottom right here somewhere. So most of them are normal, but some of them are high. And what I'm interested in doing in this video is to shed light on why some of these vitamins, if not all of them, can play a role into day-to-day life without you realizing. So some things that you're struggling with may be attributed, not always, but may be attributed to chronic lack of some of these vitamins in high amounts. So again, if you're here just to see what I got, here's a section of it, here's another section of it. Screenshot it if you want to see what you think. But if you're interested to see the kind of science behind these and why I'm going to go through each of these, stay tuned to the video and I shall share that. So, are you ready? I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's do it. Vitamin A. So, vitamin A. As you know, it's fat soluble, really important for the whole kind of eye health. Another key phytochemicals, something known as zeaxanthin and lutein, are also used with vitamin A to help keep an eye on your eye health, as well as immune function, as is mentioned, and reproduction. So, according to my results, I have a normal need for vitamin A. As you can see, men require an average higher amount of vitamin A compared to women. But it's interesting to know that even though I, believe it or not, wear contact lenses, it's interesting to see how certain vitamins play a role in your eye health long term, because as we know, your eyes are living tissue and they can increase or decrease in terms of your prescription for your eyes, or your health of your eye can get worse or better. And actual optometrists even recommend to their patients to take not just vitamin A as a supplement, but as in whole foods, as well as those two key phytochemicals I mentioned, lutein and zeaxanthin. So something interesting to remember for vitamin A. And ever, which is why I really like DNAFIT and these reports. I'm not sponsored by DNAFIT. I just want to mention because I would love to be. Who wouldn't be? But I am really impressed with the level of detail they provide in these reports. Remember, there's 4. This is part 2. And I'm interested to see that they mention things to consider, where to get those vitamin A in whole foods from, how to cook them, and some really key information. So if you're not well versed in this, as I mentioned in part 1, the report gives you what to do if in case you need to up your amount of something, whether it's some protein, whether it's vitamin, whether it's the type of fitness. So that's something interesting to remember. So vitamin A, we've had a look at. Vitamin B2, also known as riboflavin, however you want to pronounce it. So, as again, I have a normal requirement of vitamin B2, and it's interesting to know, and something I didn't know about, that some bacteria in the large intestine produce vitamin B2 that can be absorbed by the body. Now, vitamin B2 generally, as it mentions, is from more meat-based foods, but I believe there are many potential vegetables that you could, again, as it mentions here, yogurt, almonds, mushrooms. So for those who don't have meat, there are non-meat alternatives. But this is something that I did want to share about vitamin B2 because the way it's not also what you eat. Sometimes it's not when you eat, it's also how you eat it. Now, I'm a big advocate also about when you eat, which requires a whole separate video about times when you eat, not snacking all the time. But as you can see on the right hand side, I'll move it so you can see. Vitamin B2 is water soluble. Now, so cooking it with a lot of water can decrease the levels, as I mentioned. So it's not about what foods you eat; it's also how you cook it. And this is a classic example of how you can minimize losing B2 when you're cooking, but also how you can easily, without realizing, lose all of the potential nutrients inside that meal by just the change in the way you cook it. So something to bear in mind with not just vitamin B2, but also many other actual nutrients, components, even proteins and stuff like that. It's how you cook it and also when you eat it, not just what it is. So something to bear in mind. Vitamin B6. Let's have a look at vitamin B6. So it's key in helping to break down proteins that you eat. And based on my genetic results, I have a normal need. And these are some of the interesting genes that they look at in terms of analyzing, do I require higher or lower amount of vitamin B6. So again, a lot of vitamins that you take and minerals from healthy foods are related to your immune function. And you'll see vitamin C and vitamin D are even more crucial. But sometimes a potential slight lack in some of these vitamins may just increase your susceptibility to infections, make you slightly more immunocompromised than normal, but not significant to warrant an issue. But the way I see a lot of vitamins and minerals is if you can get that right just by eating the type of foods that are required, a balanced meal, you're going to give your body the best possible foundation to be as healthy as it can. And you come to realize that sometimes we mask a lot of things, not realizing that maybe we are slightly malnourished, even though we eat a lot of food, but we're malnourished in terms of the correct nutrients. So, as ever, I have a normal need for vitamin B6. Again, it's actually quite interesting for hemoglobin, believe it or not, and a lot of vitamins are for DNA synthesis, red blood cell formation, and again, as ever, which I'm really impressed about, is give you some ideas where you can get vitamin B6 from whole foods. So interesting. And a friend of mine has iron deficient anemia, and they actually advocate vitamin B6, vitamin B12 as part of his therapy. So it's actually quite interesting. So, shall we move on? After vitamin B6, let's do so. So, vitamin B9, also known as folate, very important for DNA replication and blood cell production, which is interesting because of what I'm about to tell you afterwards. So, for part of the video, I have a normal need, which is good, but as you can see here, it's very important in terms of if you have a deficiency in folate, fatigue, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and sometimes we might have this on a day-to-day basis. Now, I'm not saying because you feel tired, you can't concentrate, that's because of a folate deficiency. Of course not. 9 times out of 10, your folate may be okay. But sometimes the reason why I'm mentioning this is we may mask through having lots of cups of coffee, energy drinks, supplements perhaps to boost our focus and our energy without actually potentially treating the root cause. Now, is it lack of sleep? Is it what you eaten the night before? What you had for breakfast? What you had for general day-to-day stuff? All of those play a role in how focused you are, how you can minimize fatigue. And sometimes just seeing certain aspects like this in terms of vitamins makes us realize that we should try our best to treat the cause of why we might be feeling too tired, why we might not be able to concentrate, as opposed to masking it by using something just to boost our focus for a short period of time. So thankfully, even though mine is normal, there are scope to think about, okay, if I'm feeling some of these symptoms that you'll see throughout this video, is it due to vitamins or is there some other cause that I'm potentially trying to mask? As ever, interesting to see that, from beans, chickpeas, leafy vegetables, green leafy vegetables, asparagus, Brussels sprouts are all high in folate, which is interesting to know. Now, something I want to bear in mind is that we can't absorb everything that we eat. So even with here, you see with I think vitamin C, we only can absorb a certain amount, or we only use a certain amount that we get taken in. As you can see here, only about 50% of folate from our food is actively used in our body. So sometimes when you see multivitamins, they have a humongous amount, like 1,000% than the recommended daily allowance. So that's why a lot of people say multivitamins are expensive urine, because it just makes your urine very coloured. But again, as I mentioned at the start of the video, they can be useful in select cases, but it is far better to have or utilize your vitamins and minerals from whole food sources. So, going further, vitamin B12, essential for nerve function, which is important, of course. Fun fact, a healthy liver can store it up for 2 years. I didn't know that. Did you know that? I didn't know that. That's quite interesting to know. And as ever, I have a normal need for vitamin B12. But something I do want to mention about vitamin B12 is that it's also known as something called cyanocobalamin. You can see here. It's another name for vitamin B12. And it's very, very important for DNA synthesis. Now, the reason why I mention that is a lot of mutations or issues with DNA that lead to potential tumors, lack of healthy function in regards to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all this type of thing, can be attributed to damage to the DNA. Now, generally how wear and tear, like that car analogy I used earlier, sometimes we need these little tiny nutrients just to help the bigger things. It's like a very small cog in a numerous amount of cogs that help a bigger thing. So if we are severely lacking without realizing vitamin B12, that can attribute to a larger potential problem. And that's why I'm really interested to make this video particularly about vitamins, because it may be underappreciated and we may not realize the value it has for bigger processes in our body, like red blood cell production, DNA synthesis, boosting our immune function. Those are all massive things. And part of it, like essential part of it, can be these vitamins. So even though I have a normal need, it's still important to keep in mind the value of vitamins. So again, as other things to consider, I'm still speaking with DNAFITHQ to see if I can release these for your benefit. But if not, message me down in the comments and we can have a chat about what they recommended for certain things. Okay. Vitamin C, probably the most interested vitamin I have for this report, or the one that I'm most interested about, even in terms of research. Now, a lot of researchers, as you can see here, talk about vitamin C in terms of boosting the immune function to counteract many conditions. If you look at many of the research done around the world, it looks at three things: trying to combat a problem, trying to prevent a problem, or trying to reverse a problem. Whether it's cancer, severe asthma, cardiovascular disease, you're trying to combat problems related to cardiovascular disease or hypertension, you're trying to prevent it from actually occurring in the first place, or you're trying to reverse the damage that's been already caused, or reverse the growth of a tumor, reverse the severity of inflammation. Now, a lot of research is boiled down to those three concepts. And vitamin C has been very, very interested in the world of immunology, biochemistry, about how you can boost its level, boost its function so it can help the immune system. It's a very key vitamin in response to maintaining the immune system, as you can see here, maintaining healthy skin. And it's good to know that for me personally, I have a normal requirement. I don't require excess amount of vitamin C just to be on the normal playing field, if that makes sense. So that's something interesting to bear in mind. And believe it or not, some vitamin C is one of those essential vitamins we actually can't make ourselves, so we rely on it from external sources, which begs the question as to, as complex as we are as humans, as vast as the amount of books I have here and consultants and professors from around the world who look at various aspects of the body, there are some things we have to go out and consume because we can't function ourselves. And vitamin C, very tiny vitamin, it's so crucial for our body, but we have to go and find it in foods. So it makes us realize, how reliant we are on the things around us. Now, vitamin D. If you are watching this in the United Kingdom, you will know that we don't get a lot of sun. And you will also know, as I'm scrolling down, I have a higher need of vitamin D. Now, genetically, a lot of people from the kind of subcontinent, Asians generally have higher levels of vitamin D. I've got some reports in the description as well. But again, maybe since I was born, because there's a lack of sunlight here, that might increase my requirement for vitamin D because I'm not getting enough from the sun down here. So I remember when I was, I think, 14, 15, and I had the general test results that you have, and it mentioned that I have a high requirement of vitamin D. Now, I can't do much about the sun. I can't ask the sun to like come down more often because it's impossible. I can't move to another country. But what I can do is try and get vitamin D from more food sources. Now, many of them come from kind of oily fish, which is actually a key part of a lot of this in terms of vitamins. But one of the key parts is obviously getting your vitamin D from the sun. So even though you can get them through select food sources, and oily fish is a key example for fat-soluble vitamins, I've got to have to try and get out to the sun as more as possible. So that's what I'm looking forward to the summer. And for those of you who live in the UK, have a think or speak to your GP or see if you can book a blood test to see if you have a high requirement of vitamin D, or i.e., do you have a vitamin D deficiency? Because obviously we make vitamin D through exposure to sunlight. So something interesting to bear in mind. Vitamin E, another antioxidant based vitamin, something I am actually quite interested in. As you can see, my level of vitamin E is normal. Vitamin E is normal. But one of the main reasons why I am interested in vitamin D, too many alphabets, vitamin E, not D, is it's very important in combating oxidative stress. Now, part of my research as a researcher is looking at immunology in severe asthma. And oxidative stress generally is one of the biggest precursors for the conditions that we see around. So the environment to trigger a tumor, the environment to trigger impairment in the cardiovascular system, or resistance to insulin and then damage to those receptors, can come from an oxidative stressful environment. And vitamin E is actually really useful to counteract because it has antioxidant properties. So you're starting to see throughout this video so far how crucial a lot of these vitamins play a role in if you have it in adequate amounts for your body's composition, because you can't get enough of antioxidants to counteract some of the damage that might be occurring in your body due to something as we know as oxidative stress. A lot of this oxidative stress can come from the harmful foods that you have, the pollution that you might be inhaling, the way you might be thinking, the drinks that you might be consuming, can all create oxidative stress. Think of it as like internal body stress. We have stress, unfortunately, in life, but we also have internal stress that our cells have to compete against. And vitamin E is actually one of those vitamins that can help to counteract the damaging effects of oxidative stress. And again, gives you some examples of where you can get vitamin E from. Omega-3. My omega-3 needs is normal. But here is a classic example of how potentially taking omega-3 supplements can potentially be harmful to you. Because for two reasons. Again, I mentioned about the whole isolate form versus whole foods. But also, you don't need a whole deal of omega-3. And actually, you see people talk about omega-3 and omega-6 and how a lot of times we may have an imbalance. We have too much omega-6 than omega-3. And that can lead to a lot of problems. But sometimes we have a huge saturation of omega-3, which can also be a problem. And this is why I want to kind of give you an example of everything is useful in moderation and in the consistency and the requirements that we need it for. Too much of something can be harmful to us. Too little of something can be harmful for us. So when you have a certain imbalance between too much omega-6 and omega-3, that's a problem. If you have too much of omega-3, sometimes 40 or 50 times the amount required from like one supplement, if you were to take it, it's also a problem. And that's why through potential oily fish can be a decent source of omega-3 without giving yourself too much. That can potentially cause a problem. And funnily enough, these genes, IL-6 or TNF, are some of the genes I actually test in the lab to see in terms of inflammation in regards to severe asthma. So it's interesting to see that how certain proteins can be looked at in so many different ways. So my requirement for omega-3 is actually normal, which is good. But keep in mind what I said about supplements and not having too much of omega-3. And as you can see here, oily fish is a great source. So leafy, I was mentioning greafy vegetable, I want to remember that, greafy vegetables. And oily fish is two things I'm trying to increase more of because it's something I know full well I haven't utilized enough during my years of life so far. And throughout these videos, throughout this being transparent and being honest and being held accountable in kind of these videos, I want to try and improve the aspects that this report is actually telling me in some capacity. And your antioxidant needs. I mentioned about antioxidants before, where it's so crucial. For example, prunes, blueberries, these type of things are powerful antioxidants that we can consume to give our body the best possible armament to counteract oxidative stress. Believe it or not, I unfortunately have a higher requirement of dietary antioxidants. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, I suggest doing so because in there it talks about my speed of generating toxins in my body, and I unfortunately generate toxins more readily and more frequently than the average person. And that coincides with me having the requirement of having more antioxidants to try and counteract that problem. So I really need to take care of what I'm giving my body in terms of oxidative stress, because I require a higher amount than the average person to counteract the oxidative stress. And as you can see here, it mentions about vitamin C, tocopherols, carotenoids. So tocopherols is vitamin E, if I can remember, and carotenoids are linked with vitamin A. So I've got to keep an eye on the oxidants I consume and kind of merge that with consistent amount of antioxidants to try and counteract that. So that's something important to bear in mind. And as ever, gives you things to consider for something that you might have a higher amount on. My iron need. I want to tell you a funny story about iron. And this will prove to you, in my Instagram, as you can see here, I class myself as a full-time nerd. And this is why. This is one of the crazy examples why. So, just to start off with, I have a normal need, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But I was with my friends a few years ago, and we were in London, in the UK. And there's a famous burger place called a Red Iron Burger. And I was in the back of the car, and they were telling me, oh, just put it into the Google Maps and let us know where Red Iron Burger is. And I put it into Google Maps, Red Iron Burger. And I said, guys, it's not coming up. Are we in the right place? It's not coming up. And they're from London, so they're like, what are you talking about? I kept pointing it in. I said, look, here, you try it. And when they looked at the phone and looked at what I typed in Red Iron, ION Burger. Now, for those of you who have some potential science background, you know iron is related to the ion bonding, ions in terms of chemistry, that type of thing, iron in terms of amino acids. I didn't write IRON. We were laughing for a good 10-15 minutes by the time we got to the burger place. But it gives you an idea of how I'm constantly thinking of science and why I talk so much about research to the point where I had to make YouTube videos about it. So, fun story about my full-time nerd experiences. So normal need, as you can tell, and as I mentioned to you earlier at the start of the video, vitamin C is really crucial in the bioavailability of iron and try and get more of it. And some of the genes here that are tested at least let me know that I have a normal requirement of iron. So something interesting to bear in mind. And as ever, different ways to things to consider if you have a high requirement of iron. Calcium needs. So believe it or not, calcium also useful for strengthening bones and teeth. And here's that interesting fact, that less than 1% of the body's supply of calcium is actually used. The remaining is stored in the bones and teeth. And calcium is one of the, you can say, nutrients that I have potentially high amounts of in terms of consumption. I have a lot of dairy products generally, a lot of yogurt, I have a lot of milk. And so I would class myself as somebody who has quite a lot of calcium. But if I don't have enough vitamin D helps with absorption of calcium. I might not be making use of all of that calcium that I'm having. This is why vitamins are really, really important. So, normal need of calcium. Interesting. We shall go further, and as you can see, calcium through cheese. I'm a big lover of cheese. Like I would cast myself as a cheese connoisseur. Um, if that is a professional experience, let me know. Selenium. Let's go into selenium. Very important for thyroid function and DNA synthesis, as I mentioned before with other vitamins. It's also a powerful antioxidant, something to bear in mind, which is key for me because, as you saw earlier, I have a high requirement of antioxidants. And my needs are normal. And something to give you an idea of how powerful nature is. One Brazil nut contains more than the recommended daily recommendations of selenium. So one Brazil nut contains 90 micrograms of selenium, which is why some people who consume too much Brazil nuts can have unfortunate conditions arising from selenium. I remember I used to watch House MD, very famous TV medical drama. I remember one episode where it was due to the CIA case, and the patient was in undercover in a certain country, and he was eating too much Brazil nuts. And this drama scenario was that this person was become really unwell, really sick because of overconsumption of selenium. There's something to bear in mind. And the reason why I say that is, as you can see here on the left hand side, selenium is what we know as a trace element or trace mineral. Trace meaning we only have a trace amount of it generally in our body, but it still plays an important function. So if you have too much of it, that can lead to problems. So, and also you can get it from Brazil nuts, fish, chicken, and eggs as dietary sources. So, something to bear in mind, see how powerful nature is, that you can get a lot of your nutrients from one Brazil nut as opposed to a supplement potentially. So something to bear in mind. And I believe that is the end of the nutrient report breakdown. I hope that was still useful. I know it probably wasn't as entertaining as you might have wished in terms of me having super high levels of something, super low levels of something. But I think some of the information that I shared hopefully will be useful for you. Like I said, if you can subscribe to the channel, that would be amazing. If you did enjoy the video and you benefited from the links, me talking, just do leave a like and a comment and down below on what else you would like me to talk about in regards to vitamins. But I shall let you enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. I shall see you on Sunday for part 3, which is the one I'm most interested about, because it's going to be about my fitness type. So certain trainings that are more beneficial for me, and certain kind of capacities that I have that are actually really useful for me to know. Because as you know, I'm very passionate about sports and fitness. But in any case, I shall let you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I shall see you on Sunday. Take care.